Welcome, beautiful souls, for another episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. I think we're at episode 95 now, getting close to the 100. I'm sitting with what special kind of treat I have for you for episode 100. If you have any suggestions, I'm always open to hearing about your ideas, your desires, your needs. Feel free to DM me on Instagram and share anything you would love to have me talk about for episode 100. Today, though, we're only at episode 95, so a few more to go. I have chosen to talk about the myth of Inanna. Do you know Inanna? She's also known as Ishtar, Asherah, Astarte, but Inanna is a Sumerian goddess. So Sumer is a really old land. It's Iraq, actually. And so it's all around the area of Mesopotamia. And we know that one of the oldest records that we have of writings actually come from ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and particularly Sumeria. And so the Sumerian goddess has a very important story that I want to share with you. First of all, because it's one of the oldest tales of humanity. This shows that when people got the ability to write, at first they were doing cave paintings and pictograms, and then that transformed into writing around the year 3000 BCE in ancient Egypt and Sumer. These are the first writings that we have records of until we discover oldest ones. Um, but when Sumerians started to write on clay tablets, they decided to share the story of Inanna. So this just shows how important this story is. And it's important because it holds a lot of wisdom for our modern world. That's the second reason why I want to share this story with you. Because while this story, this myth is very ancient, it's so relevant for today's society. And I shared in my previous episode that I have been going through a bit of a death rebirth journey myself in the past months. And I thought about this tale a lot because I was like, oh, this is where I am at this in the story of Inanna. This is exactly where I am. Okay, now this is where I am. Oh, this is where I am. So it's so interesting because our feminine souls, a lot of spiritualists actually think that the soul is feminine because she's a birther, she's a creator, she's cyclical. Those are all aspects from the feminine. Our souls are here to evolve, and we evolve through the understanding of stories, symbols, images. Our souls, our feminine brain, our intuitive brain, our cerebellum, which is in the back of our brain, connected to the unseen, don't work like our conscious brain, our rational brain, or like the left hemisphere. And so understanding and knowing this story is going to give a map to your soul to express your highest potential and step into who you came here to be. Isn't that what we are all looking? Isn't that what you are looking for in your life as well? To express your highest potential, to live your true purpose, step into who you came here to be? Yes, it is. I'm hearing you nod. And so, this is why this story is going to be so key for you to understand. A few months ago, I had Laila El Kadri come on the podcast, and she shared that story through the perspective of how it activates our magnetism. And I was at the time starting to delve into like myths and ancient teachings. I mean, I was already a lot into ancient teachings, but there's so much to uncover, guys. Like, I think a whole lifetime is not enough to learn everything that we need to learn. And so, since she shared that story on the podcast with all of us, I got really curious and I went much, much further into understanding the myth of Inanna. And I really sat with it. And as I went through my own death rebirth journey in the past almost 6 months, I've gained even more wisdom from it. So I'm going to be sharing all of that with you in this podcast. So Inanna is the goddess of heaven. She's the goddess of love, fertility, beauty. She has a sister, Ereshkigal. And Ereshkigal is the goddess of the underworld, the goddess of death. And she lives in the underworld where it's dark, where it's cold, where there's no food. And she cannot get out of the underworld because that's her queendom. But Inanna, who's the queen of heaven, can go to the underworld under one condition. She knows that condition very well, is that she might not come back. When you go to the underworld, you have to die because that's the rule. You go and see the goddess of death, right? And so one day, Inanna hears that Ereshkigal, her dear sister, lost her husband and that he passed away. And so she wants to go and see her sister to give her condolences. And she knows. She knows the rule. She's probably not going to come back, even if she is the queen of heaven. And so she prepares her departure and she tells her student or friend, it's not really clear depending on the text and the translations, Nin Subur, she tells her, if I'm not back in 3 days and 3 nights, come and get me, please. We'll come back to that 3 days and 3 nights. You've already heard that somewhere, right? And so Inanna goes and knocks at the door, the great entrance of the underworld. Knock, knock, knock. Who is there? We don't want to see anyone. Hello, it's me, Inanna, Queen of Heaven. I'm the sister of Ereshkigal, and I'm coming to give my condolences for the death of her husband. The gates open. And as she walks down to the room of the throne where her sister is, she has to go through 7 gates. And at each gate, she's asked to release an item that she's wearing. And of course, imagine going to the funeral of your brother-in-law. You're wearing your finest clothes. As the Queen of Heaven, she's wearing her crown, her most valuable jewels, her scepter as a sign of power, queendom, her most beautiful dresses and shoes. And so through each gate, she's being asked to release her crown, her scepter, her earrings, her bracelets, her rings, her necklaces, and finally, her dress and shoes and underwear. And she arrives at the room of the throne, totally naked. And there she sees her sister, Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld. And Ereshkigal is surrounded by judges. And they judge her, they criticize her, they spit at her, they treat her really badly. And eventually, Ereshkigal stands up and kills Inanna. Because that's the rule. You come to the underworld to die. But suddenly, Ereshkigal starts crying. She's like, oh my God, I just lost my husband. Now I killed my own sister. And she's desperate. And she takes Inanna's corpse and she hangs it on the wall of the room of the throne. And she cries there. 3 days and 3 nights go by. And Ninsubur is waiting for Inanna to come back. But she isn't. So she goes to see Inanna's father, Enki, and she asks for help. And Enki says, you can go with these 2 beings to meet the goddess of death and bring Inanna back. And the beings are known as Galas. They're sexless beings, neither female, neither male. And they arrive and they see Ereshkigal crying and mourning the death of her sister and husband. And they just sit next to her and they cry with her. And Ereshkigal is saying, "Ay, ay, ay, my heart." And the beings respond, "Ay, ay, ay, your heart." And then Ereshkigal says, "Ay, ay, ay, my insides." "Ay, ay, ay, your insides." And this goes on for hours. And then Ereshkigal suddenly stops crying. And she says to the two beings, "I feel so seen by you, so supported by your compassion and presence. I will give you anything. What do you want?" And then the two beings say, "Well, we want the corpse of Inanna that's hanging off the wall right there." And Ereshkigal says, "Okay, you can have Inanna's corpse, but she cannot leave without leaving something behind. Because everybody that comes to the underworld comes there to die. So she has to leave something that will die for her." And they say, "Okay, we'll go back to the world of light. We'll go back to the heavens and we'll find something or someone to replace Inanna." And so Inanna comes back alive as soon as she reaches the light and leaves the underworld. And she is more beautiful, more powerful, more insightful, and wiser than she was before. And she walks around heaven and she sees everybody that was mourning her, and she's so touched by all that love. And then she sees her partner, Dumuzi, who's partying and not really caring that she died. And so she decides to send Dumuzi to the underworld to replace her. And Dumuzi's sister says, "Oh, no, 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 no. Don't send my beloved brother. I will go in his place." And so Geshtinyana, the sister of Dumuzi, then goes for 6 months in the underworld. And Dumuzi goes for another 6 months. Why is this important? Because Dumuzi is very connected to the sun god. He represents the light and the sun as well. And so some believe that this represents the changing of the seasons, and why 6 months of the year we have light, and 6 other months it's much darker. But this is just a little side teaching to the story of Inanna, because there are so many more teachings that are actually much more important than that one of the seasons. Maybe you want to pause this video or pause this podcast, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube, because there's really a lot to think about. And the first one that I love, not the most, but that I really love, I love all those teachings, to be honest, because I think they're really rich when you start to apply them into your life. The first one is that Inanna is willingly facing the darkness. So to truly understand these teachings, you have to understand that every being represents a part of us and could also be another person. It's like dreams. You always have to interpret them both ways. Like, what if all the personas represented a part of me? And what if all the personas represented actually someone else? It's the same for these myths when you want to really dive into the depth of their teachings. And so in the idea that every person in the story represents a part of ourselves, Inanna represents the parts of you that are full of love, because she's the goddess of love and beauty, right? That it's the part of you that feels empowered, confident, loving, compassionate. Whereas the Reshkigal, who's the queen of death, represents the part of you that are darker. It's the underworld. It's your fears. It's your darkness. You remember in the story, Ereshkigal is sitting in the room of the throne with all those judges that criticize and judge Inanna. And so we have this part of us that sometimes criticize us, and we're like, who do you think you are? You're an imposter. Why would you be doing that? You're not enough. You should be doing this first. Da, 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 da. All that negative self talk and inner critic that we can have. And so Inanna knows that by going to the underworld, she might die and not come back, even though she's prepared her return. There's a teaching there as well. But she still goes. So by facing your own shadows, your own underworld, that is how you eventually come back. More powerful, wiser, more connected to yourself than ever before. This idea of the Queen of Heaven and the underworld, it also teaches about the polarity of life, the polarities within ourselves, the cycles of life, the transitions of life, the death rebirth journeys, night and day, yin and yang. Both are present, both are needed, both offer teachings. Without the darkness, there wouldn't be light. Without the darkness, there wouldn't be transformation. It also refers to our own feminine cycles, because we go through all these phases every month as we bleed. And if you're not bleeding anymore, you're connected to the moon that goes through these cycles as well. So this is really the story of light meeting darkness, and us daring with our own self-love to go and face our own shadows. That's the first teaching. The second one, we're going to go chronologically, right? It's easier. Inanna arrives, she has to go through those 7 gates. 7 is a very sacred number, very mythical. It teaches about the direction. If you put 7 vertical, it's the number 7. If you put it horizontal, it's like an arrow. It's all about the direction, the evolution. It's a very sacred word. So of course, the 7 gates that she goes through, she goes deeper. It's the direction of going deeper within, letting go more of who you are not. This crown that makes her a queen, this scepter that makes her a queen, this dress that makes her beautiful, these earrings that make her shine and golden. These are all amazing, but is it really who she is? Who is she if she's not a queen? Who is she if she's not beautiful? Who are you without all your roles, your labels? Who are you if you're not a mother? Who are you if you're not an entrepreneur? Who are you if you're not a spiritual seeker? Who are you without your clothes, without your beauty? You are naked, but you are at the core of yourself without those labels. And by letting go of who you think you are, or all those labels, that's how you touch to the truth of your being. And you get the opportunity to be reborn. But in order to be reborn, you must first be killed. Which is why Inanna arrives naked in front of her sister Ereshkigal and gets killed. And that death lasts for 3 days and 3 nights. This is very symbolic. And so it's really the idea that, of course, we know this 3 days, 3 nights from Jesus and the resurrection, where he dies for 3 days and 3 nights before he's resurrected and discovered again by Mary Magdalene. But this 3 days and 3 nights actually is older than that. It doesn't come from Jesus. It comes from the observation of the moon and the sun. You're going to be like, what? All our spirituality is actually very earth-based and very connected to the observation of nature. Because there's so much wisdom in nature, and because nature is divine. Come on, look at how perfect it is, right? And it's trying to teach us. And we are nature as well. So nature just reflects to us who we are. So let's have a look at the winter solstice. The winter solstice is the moment where the sun is most at east in the northern hemisphere, and it's the shortest day of the year. And then when the days get longer, we do not really see that anymore because we don't live, we live in cities with light pollution. We don't really see the sunrise and the sunset every day. The sun is going to move more to the west and then rise to the west, to the maximum point to the west at the winter solstice. And it is going to stay still there for 3 days and 3 nights. And then it's going to move back, so because the days get shorter. And then at the winter solstice, again, it stays there for 3 days and 3 nights. So at the winter solstice and the summer solstice, the sun sets and rises and sets, at the same location for 3 days and 3 nights. I'm losing my words. I'm going to repeat this. Sorry. At the winter and summer solstice, the sun rises and sets exactly at the same location for 3 days and 3 nights. All the other days of the year, there is a difference. It changes, it evolves, it moves. Isn't that interesting? The word solstice itself comes from Old Latin, which means stillness. So there's a death there. For 3 days and 3 nights, there's no movement. And that pause, that sacred pause, is necessary for the new movement to happen again. This is what the sun teaches us. The sun, the giver of life. There wouldn't be life on earth without sunlight. Now let's have a look at the moon. The moon, the feminine goddess. The moon goes through cycles every single month, right? The dark moon, also known as the new moon, is 3 days and 3 nights where we can't see the moon in the sky because the sun is not reflecting its light on her. So again, there's this energy of 3 days and 3 nights, and this is where it comes from. That we need 3 days and 3 nights of stillness for the new cycle to begin. We need that sacred pause. We need that before we can go again. And it's very symbolic because our cycles, the evolution of our soul, doesn't happen every single month, 3 days and 3 nights, or every single year. It can be much longer cycles, shorter cycles. It really depends. But what it means is that when you are in the darkness, when you feel that you're dead, when you have let go of all the things that you thought you were, and you don't know exactly what is coming, you don't know exactly who this new you is going to be. You don't know exactly what gifts, what lessons, what understandings are going to come from this death, from this letting go, from this releasing what doesn't serve you. You have to stay in that space for it long enough, and that depends of every person, for the cycle to begin again. The more you surrender, the faster the cycle will begin again. It might be actually 3 days and 3 nights. It could be a week. It could be 3 weeks, 3 months. It depends. But you have to accept that you are in the dark, that you are dead, and that you don't have clarity. And it's okay because it's all part of the plan. This is how it's meant to happen. Because while you might not consciously see what is happening, underneath the surface, everything is moving, everything is preparing, everything is rearranging to show you the way, to bring you back. While you're waiting for your 3 days and 3 nights in the underworld, Ninsubur goes to see Enki. They prepare the two beings. They are coming to get you. So this is another teaching, but first I want to get to something else that's connected to those 3 days and 3 nights. Because while it means that you need to wait and surrender, Ereshkigal also has a teaching for us there, not just Inanna. Ereshkigal is crying. She's mourning the death of her sister, right? What is happening there is that the two beings come and cry with her. They feel for her. They are compassionate with her. They show her love because they're coming from the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of love. And after crying long enough and feeling so seen by them, this is when she says, I feel so much better. I have never felt seen and loved like that before. I will give you anything. So, this is teaching us that compassion and love towards yourself is what will release your pain, is what will release your fear. It's what will release your limiting belief. So if you find yourself in that space of darkness, you have to wait, but you also have to be incredibly compassionate with yourself. Feel everything that needs to be felt. Embrace the pain. Cry the tears. Hit the pillows. Go and scream in the forest. You're in pain. Just acknowledge that. It's okay. It's normal. Express it. You are not these emotions, but by allowing them to move through you, you will release them. And how do we allow emotions to move through ourselves? By acknowledging them, by validating them. Yes, I am sad. Yes, I'm in pain. Yes, I feel lost and disoriented and I don't know how to move forward. And that's how we move past the darkness, because you are not that darkness. It's not who you are. It's just a part of you. And so that's another really beautiful teaching that I love. And it is also saying she stayed there for 3 days and 3 nights, not 10 days. So there's also a moment where it's like, okay, I have cried it all out. I have expressed it all. Now it's time to move on. It's time for the next chapter. And we usually feel that life force energy that starts to move through us when we have expressed it all and felt it all. And so the next teaching is really beautiful as well, because Inanna knew that she was potentially going to die and not come back. And so she prepared support. The death rebirth journey, the spiritual journey of remembering who you came here to be, of stepping into your highest potential, living your true purpose. It's not a journey that you're meant to walk alone. Find teachers, find masters, find soul sisters, find people who can see you, who can find you, who can witness who you are and bring you back from your own darkness. And this is exactly what Inanna did. She prepared her return by asking Ninsubar to send beings to come and rescue her. And they came with love, they came with compassion. And this is how they got her body back. And so this wisdom is also present in the myth of Isis and Osiris. Maybe I'll share it in another podcast. But this idea of like having people guide us, show us the way, support us on the path, having sisters to really be there for us, is present in a lot of spaces, because we're not meant to walk that path alone. We're beings of connection. We're not meant to just be alone. And this is something that's like so misunderstood in our society, because we are so lonely. Well, look how terrible it's making us. There's so much depression, so much burnout, so many people disconnected from their soul, their sense of purpose, the meaning of life, because we're lonely. And by reconnecting with each other, we reconnect with the divine within each other as well, and within ourselves. And we get the help that we need to go and express our highest potential. And then finally, she comes out of the underworld and she's wiser, stronger, more beautiful, and more powerful to serve her people as the Queen of Heaven. So in the end, all this journey to the underworld allowed her to let go of who she is not and express more of who she truly is and serve better. And this is why this myth is so important, because this is the purpose of death rebirth journey. This is the purpose of the cyclical nature of life. This is the purpose of the cycles of transformation, is that whenever you find yourself in a dark space, it's because it's time to let go. And this really works both ways. It's that if you suddenly find yourself in this place where you're like, my God, I don't understand what's happening, everything's collapsing, it's because life, the flow of life, Kriya, the goddess, your spirit guides, your soul, call it the way you want, are telling you it's time to let go of who you are not and truly express who you came here to be. There's something you're doing, there's a way that you're showing up, that you're behaving, that is not honoring your truth. And so we are making you face this, we are making you face this darkness and be in this uncomfortable position so that you can have a look inside and let go of who you are not. And so this story is interesting because it kind of can help you know, it can help you see like, okay, I am willingly facing the darkness or not. Okay, I feel I'm letting go of my crown. I'm letting go of this. I'm letting go of that. That's the moment usually where you're like, oh my God, everything is collapsing. Things aren't working out. Who am I really in the end? You know, all these things start showing up. And then a few weeks, days, experiences later, you're going to feel dead. You'll be killed. There's going to be something happening that's simply going to kill you. And you're just going to feel it in your body. I'm dead. And often we call that depression. You're not totally depressed. Your soul is inviting you to express more of your truth. That's what's really happening. So there it's important to feel it all, to cry, to scream, to be furious, to stay in bed. Just get support at that point. Understand what's going on. Don't do this work alone. Go and see a therapist. Go and talk to your friends. Read books that can inspire you. Spend time in nature. Take care of your body. Because for that life force to be able to come back, it's going to happen through your body, through your emotions. Like, really do the work. And at some point, 3 days and 3 nights later, but we said it's symbolic, things are going to start moving. The light is going to show at the end of the tunnel. Something's going to shift. And that light is really represented by those two beings. They come from heaven. They come from the light. They are the light at the end of the tunnel. This is the story of the light meeting the darkness, remember? And so things are going to shift at some point. And you're going to be like, oh, I feel alive again. I feel stronger. I feel wiser. I have learned this. I have let go of that. I am not my roles anymore. I am not this anymore. You realize that through this whole process, something new, a new energy, a new way of doing things, a new desire has popped up. But you cannot know that desire before actually being there yet. So, this is why it's so key on the death rebirth journey, the cycles that we go through, the transformations that we go through, the chaos that we experience. It's so important to surrender, to embrace it, and to be really, 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 really compassionate with ourselves. And so the other way to approach this is that if we feel that something new wants to come through, if we feel that something just isn't aligned anymore, we need to let go. We can intentionally create that death. We can intentionally go to the underworld, release all the crown and the dress and the things, and kill that part of us and say, no, this is just not working for me anymore. Yes, I loved this program. Yes, I love doing this. Yes, this is something that worked really well for me for a long time. But who I have become and who I really am inside, actually, that's not working for me anymore. So I'm releasing it. So this myth is so key, and I can feel in, you know, the like time and space bubble, other dimension that we have created within this podcast, that you're feeling, you're sensing this truth as well. And life, because of her cyclical patterns, is always going to make you work through these journeys. It's always going to guide you through small death rebirth journeys. We usually have a really big one in our life, which is going to lead us to having a big spiritual awakening, which for me was really my divorce. And when I quit everything, my country, my job, sold my flat, and just moved to the other side of the world to study energy healing. And everyone was like, okay, she's crazy. She had an amazing career waiting for her in the bank. She had everything, and she's gonna move to Canada to study energy healing. Like, what? Best decision of my life. Best decision of my life. But it wouldn't have happened if everything didn't collapse. So that was a really big death rebirth journey. But because times are quickening, we can have several really big death rebirth journeys in our lives. And like I was sharing at the beginning, I just had a small 6 months one. And it's for smaller things where I just feel like pushed into corners, things aren't working, it's a bit stressful. And because I'm understanding that this is how life is teaching me to move on, to evolve, to step up, I embrace those cycles. I'm not fighting them. I welcome their teachings. And so I'm sharing this myth with you so that you can understand how life is guiding you to embrace your highest potential, so that you can know and recognize this is where I am in this like myth of Inanna, because there are several stages, there are several scenes, several steps if you want. And by knowing where you are, you know how to deal with it, right? You understand better what you're going through. So life is naturally going to put you through those cycles. And you can consciously also go through them so that life doesn't have to force you, right? You're going to feel intuitively, okay, it's time for me to let go of this. So I highly recommend you do it intentionally before life has to force you, because that's usually more painful. So, my loves, I hope this story really stays in the back of your head and supported you on your journey, because I've really been sitting with this myth of Inanna for a long time in the past 6 months, and it's really been like a flashing light in the darkness for me. And this is what spirituality is. It's a flashlight in the darkness. We live in a dark world. We live in a dense world. There's a lot of chaos happening. That's because we are also experiencing a big transformation at a collective level. This myth of Inanna doesn't just work at an individual level, also at a collective level. And so being able to understand, okay, this is what's happening. This is the ancient wisdom that I have that can help me work through these times. I have my spiritual practices to stay centered. I have my connection to the unseen. I have my intuition. It's a flashlight in the darkness. And it's also guidance to step into who you came here to be, to express your highest potential, to always uncover more by who you are. Because as a spiritual being, you have a multi-dimensional essence. And so this means that there's going to be always deeper layers for you to uncover. You came here to evolve as much as possible. So embrace this story, take these teachings with you, sit with them, write them down, keep them in the notes in your phone somewhere, because I promise you they will serve you deeply at some point in your life. And if you are in a time of change and transition and chaos, and you feel in that death rebirth journey, refer yourself to the different steps, the different stages and scenes of this story, and give yourself compassion. Love is the answer. Love is always the answer. And in this case, it's love towards yourself. And at a collective level, it's love towards the others. Final note before we close this episode. Of course, this is something that we see in depth inside the Mystery School. If you want to learn more about myths that have teachings like this, the cyclical nature of life, how to express your highest potential and really live your purpose, step into who you came here to be, get on the waitlist of the Sacred Roots Mystery School, because we are going to embark on a new 4 months journey on the 21st of December. I am so excited. This is going to be a bit different than the other rounds that I have held and that I'm still leading. because this is going to be partly pre-recorded, partly live, so that you can watch everything in your own time and have more support in the Q and A's. And I am so excited because I have condensed some of the teachings. I have brought them together. I have started recording the videos, and there are some like new things that came through that I just can't explain it with word, because this work is so much deeper than we can explain with the mind. It's soul work, it's soul nourishing, it's deep, it's transformational, it's just deeply life-changing. It's not work for everybody. You need to be ready for a mystery school, but if you're still listening to this podcast after this 40th minute, check in with yourself. Really, really check in with yourself. Is this in my highest good? You deserve the mysteries. You deserve to uncover the truth about life, about who you really are, who you came here to be. And like learning these teachings, this ancient wisdom, these spiritual practices, applying them to my life changed everything for me. Well, just like the story that I just shared with you, it changed everything for me. And that's just like a sneak peek into 4 months filled with teachings. So if this is calling you, get on the waitlist of the Mystery School, because you're going to be receiving an early bird. There's a $500 discount. You get a priority access and a surprise that I will reveal in the emails to the waitlist that I am so excited about. I think you're going to love it. When I had that idea, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, they're going to love it. I love it. So I know you will be really happy and excited by that opportunity and that offer as well. So, my loves, thank you so much for inviting me in your private space. Thank you for listening to me today. Of course, if you love this episode, you can always leave a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify or YouTube. You know how it works. This helps to bring my work to more people, so that more people can awaken, live their true highest potential, their true purpose, and learn this ancient wisdom that is so life changing once you apply it to your modern life. So much love, and I will see you next week.